Hello and welcome back to Stuff Every Queer Kid Should Know, a survival guide for late adolescence and beyond. My name is Max Emerson, and I'm a writer-performer using my social media platforms to create independent narratives. Like the rest of my work, the mission of this podcast is to provide valuable resources, role models, and tools to enhance well-being, connection, and personal fulfillment. My guest today is visual artist, U.S. Army veteran, content creator, and model, Andrés Camilo. Today we're going to be talking about family planning. As many of you know, Andrés Camilo is my fiancé and partner of more than 8 years. He's the love of my life, constantly inspiring me, and makes every single day just a little bit brighter. That being said, however, is no excuse for any sort of preferential treatment on this podcast, which aims to uphold entirely professional standards. I plan to treat Andrés just as I would any other guest. Andrés incorporates his personal life into his work by drawing on his experience as a child immigrating to the U.S. from Medellin, Colombia at the age of 8, his journey to becoming an officer and earning a Bronze Star in the U.S. Army, and his conflict in navigating war as a closeted gay man. Leading with authenticity, he openly shares his life and relationships on social media, encouraging others to lead their own with connection and understanding. With a focus on captivating visual art and compelling short-form narrative, he creates engaging experiences for his audience. Everyone, please welcome to the studio, Andrés.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. How do you like the studio?
It looks just like our living room. I'm surprised they were able to get all the same furniture and everything set up in the space.
Yeah, we spared absolutely no expense in making sure that you were very comfortable here today.
I see it.
As with any other guest on Stuff Pod, I have a rigorous questionnaire for our audience to get to know you. Are you ready?
Yes.
Will you please state your name for the record?
Andrés Camilo,
What is your zodiac sign?
Leo.
What are you an expert in, and what are we talking about today?
I'm an expert in our relationship, and we're talking about Planned Parenthood.
Family planning. We're talking about family planning. Planned Parenthood is a very different entity.
No, it's not.
Actually, that's fair.
Planned Parenthood is how to plan a family.
That's a good point. What is your favorite animal?
Sarge.
What is your least favorite animal?
Tick I pulled off Sarge.
Ooh. What's the last thing you ate?
A smoothie.
How many caffeinated beverages do you drink per day?
3?
I'm not going to call you out. What is your caffeinated beverage of choice?
Hot coffee.
Hot coffee.
I'm Colombian.
Otherwise, it'd be cold brew.
Yeah.
I feel like we had a cold brew
Because I'm gay.
phase.
So
Yeah.
yes.
We had a cold brew phase, but it's not summertime yet. What is your biggest pet peeve?
Being rushed when I'm not ready. Or when think I'm forgetting something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or
Or being
also,
interrupted.
yeah. What is your dream vacation destination?
Oh, really want to go New Zealand? Hint, hint. Honeymoon.
Yeah, no pressure. Budget allowing. I've heard Malibu looks a lot like New Zealand this time of year. What is your favorite sport or game?
To play beach volleyball. To watch American football.
American football. What is your favorite thing about queer bars?
Oh, the help yourself water jug.
That is a nice innovation. I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah,
as well.
it's like I don't want to have to go to the bartender and just ask for more water because I just want to drink water all night.
Yeah, I think there was a phase where they were trying to charge like $10 for Gatorades, and then people were just dying of dehydration.
It's on them.
Yeah, they're keeping up. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being a virtual hellscape and 10 being an absolute wonderful utopia, how are things looking for queer people in America right now?
I mean, better than before. Lots of work to be done. 6.66.
6.66. What was the last item that you misplaced?
I don't lose things very often, so this is kind of hard.
That's true. He is the finder in our relationship. Like when I lose something, I just call him the finder, and he's got it in like 3 minutes.
My workout pants, and I actually think you misplaced them, but let's not get into that now.
Where were they?
They were at the beach, and my friend Matt picked them up, and they got back to me.
I left your pants on the beach? That sounds like...
Well, you packed, and you just didn't pack the pants.
Okay. What was the last thing you were super mad about?
Oh. The Supreme Court.
Just the Supreme Court, period.
Fair. Yeah. I was going to pinpoint something, and I realized that's actually it.
The last thing that made you cry?
Oh, this is seriously a question right now?
You can pass anytime. Just pass. It's all good.
Probably exploring my grief about my mom's death with my therapist.
Yeah, that makes sense. What is the location of the worst date that you've ever had?
Location.
Yeah. Don't need the whole story. Just
Oh
where
my
was it?
God.
City, type
New
of restaurant.
York.
New York. Yeah, that makes sense. And your most prized possession?
Hmm. It's a tough one. Probably like the place where my pictures are stored in the cloud.
Okay. That or the junk box in our crawl space. He's got 3 giant plastic tubs full of absolutely useless stuff. It's like old computers,
They're
and
pictures. Most of it is like memories and
but
pictures
the
and
only
like,
time we ever look at them is to move the tubs from one location to the next. But I get it.
yeah.
You cherish it. We just never actually interact with it. Okay, so I've got some follow-up questions before we talk about family planning and Planned Parenthood and all of that stuff,
Okay.
just so that I feel like our audience always wants to know more about you. So we're going to talk a little bit about Andres. And first of all, we're going to start with your recent transition from construction cost management to full-time artsy boy visual artist
Okay.
extraordinaire. Can you tell us about your journey from Colombia to the US and how that experience has influenced your artistic work?
My first thought was, well, I took a plane.
Mhm.
Oh wow.
Well, I really did make it sound like you
Wait, say the
came on foot,
question.
didn't I?
Say the question again.
Tell us about your journey from Colombia to the US, just your experience as being an immigrant and how that shaped your perspective on storytelling as a visual artist.
Oh,
Is that a better way to reframe it?
yeah. I mean, I think they're a bit different things. So my immigration story is more about just being in a very unsafe place and my parents and my family realizing that there was just better options for a kid, and very grateful that they made those choices. But it was just a very alienating experience where you come to a new place, you're looking forward to it, but you don't know what it is. You have this thought in your head as an 8-year-old, and there's reality, and you don't speak the language. Streets aren't made out of gold, and everything's just different than you expected. So there's a bit of an adjustment. And it's just very lonely for a kid. I was an only child at the time. And so I had to go through all of that kind of on my own. I mean, my mom was going through her version of it, but she was an adult just having to worry about finances and very different things. And, when it comes to my art, it's more about finding that feeling and kind of getting it into a visual format. It's kind of what I try to strive for, and hoping that it connects with people wherever they are,
So it's
where
kind of
it's,
encapsulating that alienation and loneliness, but through a perspective that I feel like you always tend to kind of find the joy and light in things at the same time while still kind of commenting
yeah,
on
I
that.
try to find the playfulness. I mean, I think it's specifically the experience of immigrating, I did that as a child. And so, it was alienating and lonely, but at the same time, I'm still a kid and I was still playing and meeting new people. And,
Mm.
I would go to school with immigrants from Laos and Mexico. And, we had tons of stuff in common, even though our home countries were worlds apart. And I think I try to kind of show that through my art, and hoping that it connects with however people, I guess, relate to that
Mhm.
alienation, whether it's because they're queer or because they are just other in any way.
Right. So it's kind of establishing some connection and camaraderie within that community.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it connects to whoever for whatever reason, but I know what I'm putting into my art.
Yeah. So Andres has served as an officer in the US Army. How has your military experience influenced your creative process and the themes that you explore in your work?
I think that when people think about the military, they imagine this very kind of fit the box and do things in this very pre-prescribed manner.
Hmm.
And that's probably true for maybe 90% of people in the military. But for officers specifically, we're the ones that kind of come up with a plan, right? So the officers tend to be the what, why. And then there's kind of more the NCO core, the non commissioned officers that figure out how to do things, but there's still a lot of creativity. I mean, you're going into situations that you haven't really planned for. I mean, you've done a bunch of exercises and drills, but it's all new to you. You don't know what the enemy's going to do. You don't know how to defend your troops. And so I think it takes a lot of thinking outside of the box and creativity and, when things fail, how to overcome that, right? If you missed a starting time, how to get your troops to do better and hit those times, whether that's getting up early, getting less sleep, maybe you split your forces, right? So there's lots of malleability. And I think that being an artist is kind of the same way. I mean, you have to split your resources based on creativity. What time am I painting? You have to market yourself. You have to build a website, do all these
It's all on you.
things that's on you. And so it's just not prescribed. You're going to meet new challenges and nobody has really faced that same unique set of challenges. So I think they're very similar in a lot of ways. A lot of artists come from the military. It's as weird as it sounds and as like opposite as those two experiences sound, I think it's very common for people that served in the military to go into creative work.
That makes sense to
And
me.
whether it's writers or painters, a lot of them have military experience.
Throughout history, people have fantasized about a magical drug that could turn gay guys straight. But what if there was a medication that could make you gayer? Introducing Pride Pills, the completely imaginary prescription medication guaranteed to lighten your loafers by at least 30%. Double-blind, peer-reviewed theoretical trials at the University of Tuscaloosa are conclusive. After just 1 week of taking Pride Pills, participants reported 25% higher recollection of Broadway musical lyrics, 40% more creativity, and a whopping 85% increase in pedestrian walking speeds. Who couldn't use a bit more kindness in their eyes and swish in their step? Try Pride Pills today and get a little glitter in your blood. Side effects include nausea, vomiting, hips that don't lie, expulsion from Muslim countries, intolerance to slow walkers, and in rare cases, spontaneous combustion. I really try to eat clean and make sure that everything I put into my body is as pure and high quality as possible. That doesn't just go for the food I eat, but also for the supplements I take, especially when it comes to omega-3 oils. We all know that fish, which is a great source of omega-3, comes from the ocean, but our oceans aren't always as clean as we'd like. That's why I'm so careful about the fish oil I choose. I found that Puori O3 Ultra Pure Fish Oil is different. It's made from small fish, which are less likely to contain harmful contaminants, and if you've ever had those nasty fish burps after taking omega-3, you know how unpleasant that can be. It could even mean your fish oil is rancid. But with Puori, I never worry about that. Their O3 fish oil is clean certified and third-party tested by the Clean Label Project against more than 200 contaminants, including heavy metals and pesticides. Plus, every batch is IFOS certified with a perfect 5-star score for purity and freshness. Oh, and get this, every bottle comes with a QR code that lets you see the specific test results for your batch. How rare is that? I take Puori's O3 Ultra Pure Fish Oil every day because I know I'm getting a premium, potent source of omega-3 that supports my heart, brain, and eyes. It's that peace of mind knowing I'm consuming something that's not just effective, but also clean and trustworthy. That keeps me coming back. And now you can try Puori's O3 Ultra Pure Fish Oil for yourself. They're offering my listeners 20% off plus an additional 20% off if you subscribe. That's almost a third off the price. So just go to Puori.com and use my promo code MaxEmerson. That's Puori, Puori.com/MaxEmerson. Don't miss out. Head to Puori.com/MaxEmerson and use promo code MaxEmerson today. One of the most pronounced things about your personality that I think the military has influenced, when we first started dating, people would ask me about you. And one of the things I would say is, he eats so fast. And that was totally a military thing, right?
Yeah, definitely.
We would sit down to a meal, even at like a nice restaurant, and you'd like wolf it down in like 5 minutes. Like, dude, that was like $40. Like, calm down.
Yeah, it helps that you talk. So I'm just like,
oh. So I got to keep you talking.
If you keep me talking, I'll slow down.
Authenticity seems to be a central theme in your work. How do you balance sharing personal experiences while maintaining boundaries between your public and private life? I feel like that's something we negotiate almost every single day.
Yeah, I think it's more of a thing because we do so much stuff together. So I don't find that I struggle with what to share. I think that line is day by day. And I don't often regret having shared something, but it's more of, why are you sharing this component of my life when I wasn't ready? And you may not think it's a private thing.
Oh, the boundaries between us, you mean?
Yeah, it's more about the
Yeah.
boundaries between us that I find in the creative work we do together. I have issue with, because I can create something
Yeah.
and it's created, and I feel like that feeling goes into it, but I don't have to share it.
Mm-hmm.
They can stay
Well, I feel like
in
with
our
people
closet.
in general on the internet, whether they're doing it for a job or not, they don't really think about their boundaries. They just kind of know what they are and they operate accordingly. It's kind of like speaking English.
Yeah.
Like, oh, of course you say it this way and not that way, but then this time you say it that way. So like working with someone else and sharing a life together, it's really interesting to have to articulate what you are and are not willing to be ready to share. For example, our decision to adopt a child.
You're telling them?
Ah, what message do you hope to convey to your audience through your art and storytelling?
I think it's all about just getting out there, putting your feelings on the line, and knowing that people are going to respond. And even when they don't respond positively, the fact that it evokes emotion is still very satisfying. And to me, that is why I do it. I like the response. I like when people see it and are captivated by it, or see the playfulness in it, and whether that's a reel I made or something I painted, just that engaging connection people have, I feel like makes it worthwhile. So I think a lot of what I hope to accomplish is get people to just do it themselves, like
Yeah.
explore themselves and
Okay.
find joy in the creative process, whatever that
So
is for
hopefully they
them.
can find some tools from your work that will guide them on their journey.
Yeah.
I think that since we're coming out of such a long period of isolation from COVID and everything else, it really changed the way that people have functioned and connected with each other. I talk to my family all the time and they're all feeling a little isolated still in 2024, 4 years later. There's no mask. It's just something has switched in our culture that is now just a little bit colder. So I definitely relate to what you're describing and trying to just create some warmth and an invitation for people to engage more.
Yeah. It's a weird catch-22 though, because I think that it happened because the growth of online resources and online attachment to and feeling like you're getting that warmth and camaraderie because you listen to a podcast or because you watch someone's stories every day, but you're not really getting that if you're not doing that in person.
Yeah, it's like a substitute.
So yeah, it's weird trying to convey that through the online and digital space while at the same time saying, just get out there and like go meet people. Cause
Like,
I struggle with that.
I know that we didn't have the same children's programming, but on, I think it was Nickelodeon, every couple hours during the day, they would interrupt the show or commercials or whatever and just have like a video of some kids playing in a park. And they're like, hey, turn the TV off, go outside, go touch some grass.
Or the PSAs.
They don't air those at all anymore. They're
Or
just like, no, just stay in front of the screen.
the PSAs for the parents at 10 p.m. Do you know where your children
Yeah,
are?
we were outside.
It's like parents suddenly realize they have children.
Yeah, the internet was too slow. You start downloading your movie. It's going to be ready in 12 hours. Go do something until then. So let's talk about more internet and short form narrative, which I think we're going to be referring to pretty much Instagram Reels at this point in TikTok and stuff like that. How do you approach creating engaging experiences for your audience, particularly in the realm of this short form video narrative?
I try to be inspired by what happens in my life and hopes that somebody out there is feeling it as well. So I think it's much about me trying to find connection as, hoping that people find it funny or engaging in some way.
You tend to keep it pretty weird. Like you turn the dog into a vacuum machine and stuff like that. How do you find that? How do you get there? Where's that coming from?
A lot of times other creators, I'm inspired by other stuff I see online. I think I'm naturally kind of a quirky person and a bit weird. And so I try to find, I guess, the similarities and differences and just different components of life, right?
Okay.
Whether it's like our need to vacuum all the time because of our dog and the fact that we vacuum, 4 times a week because we have a dog that sheds a lot,
Yep.
Contrasting with the fact that our dog eats everything off the ground and he's our vacuum cleaner too.
That's true.
Right. So there's some
You
humor
give what
in
you
that.
get.
Yeah. So just try to find like that line where it's kind of this knowing.
Yeah. I feel like you do this great job of just, you take something that's so seemingly unrelated and just throw it into a new context that people really seem to relate to. I feel like you get picked up by that algorithm more than most people I know. So we're going to wrap up the independent artist conversation with one last question. What advice would you give to aspiring artists and content creators who help to create meaningful and authentic work?
Just get started.
Hmm.
When I started painting, I was already doing short form videos on social media, whether it's Instagrams or TikToks, and I was already exploring that side of my creativity, but didn't know where I was going with the painting stuff. Didn't know I wanted to eventually turn it into a career, and I just loved it, kept doing it. By just creating, you kind of find your voice and what you want to say and how you want to say it. But there's no other way to go about it other than creating it, very unlike kind of my military background where you have this plan. And even if things don't go according to the plan, like that's what you're going to try to stick to.
Hmm.
Um, I think just creativity and whether music or painting, it's just all about getting to work and kind of just
Well,
doing
it's a
that
muscle.
self-discovery process.
Yeah. My mentor in college always just said, get your ass in the seat. If you get your ass in the seat, you'll make the thing. And you have to expect that, at least for writing, 80% of it is going to be garbage or just okay. And that is okay. Because if you don't make that 80%, won't make that 20% that is really good. So I appreciate that. I'm glad that there's so many parallels because we share a workspace and it's important to understand. It's important to understand each other.
Yeah.
On this episode, I'm having Andrés Camilo, my fiance and partner of more than 8 years, on because we have an exciting and amazing announcement to share with you today.
We're growing our family.
Today, we're talking about how we reached the decision to have children, the twists and turns of researching various family planning methods, and the paths we pursued to ultimately figuring out what was and wasn't right for us. From exploring adoption to considering surrogacy and everything in between, we're going to uncover the highs, the lows, the pivotal moments that shaped our family building journey. This relationship essentially started as a hookup that accidentally turned into a relationship. For example, we learned each other's names in the shower after. But when we did sit down to have a meal together, we got through all those questions. I feel like it's a really big prerequisite if you're going to take dating someone seriously. Like, have you ever dated someone that said that they didn't want kids?
I don't think so. No.
Never?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, I don't think I have either. You just kind of like, okay, well, seriously, that's wonderful that you don't want to have kids, but I'm going to be over here. We can keep hanging out. But yeah, all right. When did we have that conversation? It was in Brooklyn, right?
I don't remember having the conversation, but I've known as long as I've known you that you've wanted kids and I've wanted kids. So
Yeah.
it's something that was more of a red flag. If you said you didn't want kids, I'd feel like I'd remember that.
Yeah.
But kind of everything just aligning and kind of going the same direction.
Right. It was one of those, like, there's like 10 questions that you kind of have to have the right answer for. And it was more like, right, like you said, like if it doesn't fit, then it sticks out. Otherwise, it's like, okay, we're good to go. Next. I'm really glad you're here for this conversation because I don't know if I've mentioned this to the internet before, but I have the memory of a squirrel. That's why Andres is the finder in our relationship. I'm constantly losing things. I'm constantly forgetting things. I'm like Julia Louis-Dreyfus in Veep, and Andres is like, that's Steve. We know him from blah, blah, blah. 2 kids. It's his birthday today. Like, thank you, Andres.
Definitely. Or how that works. Yeah.
Um, let's talk about how we decided we were ready to have kids. It's very similar to how we decided we were ready to get a dog. Like, we finally moved to a space where we're like, oh, a dog sitter will be willing to stay here overnight because it's right on the beach. We have enough space here. Like, this is a place that can accommodate a dog. Let's do it. And I feel like a kid 4 years later, 5 years later was kind of the next step there.
Yeah. I think it's all very practical with us. We wanted to get the space. We need the SUV. And once we have those kids, we feel like we're ready to kind of step into the next role.
Yeah. It's kind of an if you build it, they will come sort of thing.
Yeah.
For our younger viewers, that's a movie. It's about a guy who builds a baseball field and ghosts come and play baseball. I
have no idea
all
what.
movies are dumb.
I just know the line. Didn't even know that was from a movie.
So we initially looked into just all of the methods of having kids. Most of our friends did surrogacy. So we looked into options with that. We weren't really taking any of that too seriously, though.
I'm going to stop you. Most of our friends that have kids just slept together and made the baby.
Fair.
Most of our queer friends.
Thank you. I forget that everyone in the world isn't queer sometimes. Most of our gay male friends were doing surrogacy. Right. We have like lesbian friends that were getting sperm donors and things like that, which is wonderful and wildly economical. But in case I don't know if we need to disclose this, but neither of us have like wombs or uteruses or any of the equipment to actually make a baby.
Uteri?
Can someone fact check the
uterus?
Plural of uterus? So there are several factors to consider with starting a family. First of all, resources. What is your budget? How much can you spend on starting a family? And resources aren't just money, it's also emotional. Like, how much capacity do you have? Like, one of the reasons that we didn't consider fostering, for example, as our first option is I don't think I have it in me to take care of someone and bond with a child for a year or more, with the goal being to return them to their birth parents. I think that would just be too devastating for me. So we did a couple of interviews with like surrogacy agencies. We talked to a couple of adoption agencies. And I think for me, at least, the decision became really easy after I talked to a couple of friends that did surrogacy. And they said that in hindsight, if they could do it differently, they probably would have just adopted, because when they were handed this completely helpless baby, it didn't matter if it was genetically theirs or not.
That's how I feel about Sarge.
Yeah.
I mean, he's adopted.
Yeah. So, just we kind of tallied the things on paper that were important to us. One of those things being just our environmental impact and not creating another human being to continue destroying the planet. Also, just through the process, I feel like, of surrogacy, there was a lot of things that kind of creeped me out about it. And don't get me wrong, like the whole family building industry has a total dark side to it. Like, all of the things that we had to go through for the home study, which we'll talk about in a second, is so invasive and so in depth. And there's so many things of like, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do this? And you realize that every single rule is in place because something must have happened, which is pretty scary. We met a friend who was adopted on a social media job on a vacation. And she was so wonderful and so fun. She was an influencer. And it turns out she was adopted at the age of 1 or 2. She did a 23 from the country of Georgia, the country. And I'm not being like sassy and political. There's a country called Georgia. She did a 23andMe, or she did a genetic spit test when she was an adult, and she found her biological birth parents, contacted them, and realized that she had been kidnapped, because 1 in 6 families in the United States, at least, are infertile. And there's just so many people desperate to start a family that the fee for just being matched with a birth mother or a baby is incredibly high, that in a country like Georgia, that's the price that someone's willing to kidnap a baby for. So for that reason and many others, they've really clamped down on things like international infant adoption. It's just really weird. Like, when things start getting expensive, I feel like industries get really dark. One of the surrogacy agencies even told us that when people try to save money by doing their surrogacy somewhere like Mexico, for example, there have been instances where people, when you create embryos, you decide which embryos to implant with your surrogate to have a baby, but you create more embryos than you actually want babies, because they don't all work. And not often, but it's happened in the past where people have their baby, but then the people behind the scenes doing this stuff save the extra embryos and have implanted them in a random surrogate, and then they just have a baby made from your DNA that they do whatever the hell they're going to do with, like, human trafficking stuff with. Like, it's so dark. So first and foremost, if you're going to do adoption, surrogacy, any of that stuff, please go with a reputable agency. Check your references. It's a sick, sad world out there.
Have you ever felt like the stress of living authentically is keeping you up at night?
You're not alone. Many of us in the LGBT community face challenges that can disrupt our sleep and overall well being. I know what it's like to carry the weight of the day into the night. The worries, the stress, and constant pressure can make it hard to unwind. I used to lie awake for hours, replaying conversations and anticipating the challenges of the next day. That's when I found Magnesium Breakthrough. Incorporating it into my nightly routine has been a game changer. It helps me let go of the day's anxieties so I can finally get the deep, restorative sleep I need. Now I wake up feeling more grounded, more myself, and ready to face whatever comes my way. Magnesium Breakthrough is different because it contains all 7 forms of magnesium, each one helping to calm your mind and relax your body. Unlike other supplements, it's designed to support you holistically, helping you both sleep better and feel more centered throughout the day. Take control of your well-being. Visit BIOptimizers.com/MaxEmerson and use code MaxEmerson for 10% off your first order. And when you subscribe, you'll get additional discounts, free gifts, and the peace of mind knowing that your monthly supply is guaranteed. Embrace the rest and renewal you deserve. Ever wonder how your daily habits like your meals, sleep, or stress impact your health? Nutrisense offers a way to take the guesswork out of the wellness journey. For many people, managing health can feel like a shot in the dark. They're trying different diets, workouts, and routines, but without the right information, it's hard to know what's truly working. That is where Nutrisense comes in. Nutrisense isn't just another health trend. It's a comprehensive program that pairs real-time data from a continuous glucose monitor with one-on-one personalized coaching from expert nutritionists. This combination helps users understand how their bodies respond to food, exercise, sleep, and stress, giving them the insights they need to make informed decisions about their health. What sets Nutrisense apart is its unique approach to personalized health. While other programs might offer generic advice, Nutrisense tailors its advice based on your unique data. With the support of a board-certified nutritionist, users can receive customized recommendations that align with their specific health goals, making it easier to achieve lasting results. If you're ready to take control of your health, visit Nutrisense.io/MaxEmerson to get $50 off your first month. That is Nutrisense.io/MaxEmerson. Or you can click on the link in the notes and use my special code, MaxEmerson, for an exclusive $50 discount. Take the first step towards better health with Nutrisense today.
Yeah, I mean, I think every method is different for a lot of people, but definitely do your homework and know what's right for you and how much hardship, how much cost can you handle. I think, for us, it was just kind of whittling down all these like different avenues and trying to figure out like what can we do, what can we afford,
Yeah,
what
it's not worth going
feelings
into debt.
do we want as a parent? Why are we becoming parents?
So we decided to adopt. And then the next step was picking an agency with which to adopt or deciding on which method to go with, because there's foster to adopt, there's international adoption, and there's infant, newborn, domestic adoption, which tends to be the most popular because, like I said, they've been clamping down on the international adoption stuff, just both for the sketchy reasons and also just purely cultural things. Like you want the child to be in their as native environment as possible. Like you want to keep them with family members or with the culture they grew up in. We pretty quickly settled on infant newborn for us. How would you describe interviewing with different agencies and selecting the one that was right for us?
I thought, a lot of them just seemed pretty reputable. I actually thought once we kind of narrowed it down to the newborn adoption, at least the ones I remember talking to, it was more of a personality fit with the way that they approached the adoption process and kind of how we want to be talked to and kind of what level of chill we wanted versus, how strict and kind of clinical they seemed. So I think that played big on my decision because at the end of the day, I thought, well, it's still just a pregnant woman choosing us, and it's more about that match than the agency. So it was how much vetting that they were willing to do to kind of make sure that the birth mother is legitimate, definitely made the right choice, has the resources to birth a healthy child.
There's a cartoon called BoJack Horseman, and one of the characters in their season maybe 3 or 4 arc is a single woman trying to adopt a child. And the way they depicted the industry from this person's perspective was so on point. Basically, they were being fed this like wonderful, like you're gonna have the best experience, like this amazing salesperson. They were in this beautiful room. And the second she wrote her check, they like handed her off to an intern who was just like like underpaid, exhausted, like didn't communicate. Like it was basically like the salesperson was great, but the actual team helping you when you were trying to match was just absolutely terrible. And I was kind of looking out for that going into this because BoJack Horseman has never been wrong when it comes to industry stuff. The production is nodding. And that's a lot of what we got. There were so many flowery packets talking about your amazing journey and how wonderful it's going to be and all these smiling babies. We ended up going with a law firm that handles everything rather than a matching agency who then hires a law firm separately, which in California, they've made just matching agencies illegal for various reasons as of last year. But I love this law firm because we didn't get any bullshit from them. We tried like all kinds of silly questions and they just shot us down. They're like, no, that's not how this works. This is what's going to be. And I love that. It was like,
They were so just to the point and telling us like it is. They weren't trying to sugarcoat things.
it was like being back in New York City. I love that.
Yeah.
I love it when people just tell me no rather than like, yeah. And then they ghost or don't follow through. That drives me nuts. So we went through a law firm that does the matching. Basically, your down payment goes to a Google ad buy that I think pretty much all a woman has to do is think about placing their child, and they're like the first thing that comes up on Google. It's that weird AI mind reading thing. But everyone puts like all of their clients kind of go into this pool that does an ad buy that brings in birth mothers, and then they match you accordingly from there. But we like going with a law firm because they don't really make money until you're matched and until it's finished, because all of their fees are finalizing the adoption rather than a matching agency just gets paid to match you. So they're not going to be as rigorous in screening whether or not the birth mom's actually pregnant, whether the birth mom actually wants to place the child for adoption, or if they just want attention and help financially,
Or they're being pressured into
or if
it.
they're being pressured into it. The company we went with costs a little bit more, but they really do the due diligence in all of that stuff and making sure that like all of the communication is truthful.
Yeah, I thought it was very important for us too to just make sure that the birth mother side of it was ethical,
Mm-hmm.
that there wasn't a woman in need kind of being taken advantage of or being sold a bill of goods that they weren't going to get when
Yeah.
it came to matching. So just the matter of factness was great, but also that they really showed that they cared about the birth mothers,
Mm-hmm.
because I think, you know,
They really take care of them. They make sure that the mom signed up for WIC or all the assistance programs that they need to be signed up for. They make sure they have a social worker working with them and making sure that placement is the thing that they want to do.
yeah, open adoption is the norm now. So that's where the birth mother stays in the life of the child, and that they will have contact with her. Obviously, us as the adoptive parents and legal guardians will kind of manage that and come to an agreement. But because of that, it was very important to, I guess, make sure that she was good, because it's somebody that
Will
our
be in the
kid will
child's life.
know their entire life.
Yeah, the new normal now, I think it's 95% of adoptions are open for that exact reason. Because I mean, I feel like every other television show has an adopted kid who's been lied to about their birth parents or is on this mission to find their birth parents. And it's like, why are you doing this? Why is there any secrecy if there doesn't need to be?
Yeah, the truth makes more confident children growing into more confident adults.
Yeah. One of the things we really liked about this particular agency is like once you match with a birth mother, it's usually second or third trimester, but there's still a 20% chance that it's not going to work out. Whether like a grandma steps in and says they're going to take care of the kid, the mom just changes their mind. Obviously, miscarriages, any of those things. Like there's a 20% chance that your match is not actually going to be the child you end up with. So you're not really supposed to tell family members or anything like that. Kind of our official update is we've passed the home study, which is like the social worker visits. Our profile is live and we're looking to match. There are no more updates until we have a child in our arms. And one of the things about the law firm we really liked is they gave us the actual number of matches that don't work rather than these flowery matching agencies being like, yeah, it's like 5 to 10% might not work out. No, it's 20. Let's be realistic. Like, but I get it. They have to, because we did a lot of classes that were required for the home study, things like racial sensitivity training. There's just classes to manage your expectations on what the situation really looks like. It's not the movie Juno. It's 90% of the time, it's not some young girl who made a mistake. And no, it's usually like a woman who's got 4 kids already and can't afford another one. It's not, there's usually drug use involved. It's hard. It's difficult. And a lot of I'd say the majority of the people in the classes were straight couples that were having fertility issues. And you could just tell that there was so much emotion because they've been trying for years. It's painful. I have a friend who's trying to do IVF right now. And when they harvest eggs, it's supposedly one of the most painful experiences you can do. And it's still not working. And so now they're here and there's just this sense of like, I don't want to say desperation, but just like incredible longing and yearning that you see why that they have this language to cater to people that are just
that need hope, that need
yeah.
to hear the good side of it, right? Whereas we were more, hey, this is how we want to make
Oh my
a
God,
family.
we can afford this now. Yeah.
This is like, we're excited about this. So just give it to us straight. We don't
Yeah.
need the floweriness. We just want to see real statistics and kind of know how to plan our lives accordingly. Because, they also told us the average match time is 18 months. So don't hold your breath for us
So
having a baby
from the
next
time
month.
that you finish your home study, which is usually a 3 to 4 month process, let's start at the beginning here because we'll catch everybody up as to where we are now. You pick your agency, pay the first 30% of the expenses, and then you do a home study, which is when you get your fingerprints scanned. They do an entire criminal background check on you in like every state in the country. You meet with a social worker together. You meet with a social worker individually. They tour the house. They tell you everything that you need to do to safety proof the house. Like if you have a pool, you have to put a gate around it. You have to plug all your outlets. It's way more.
They contact references.
Yeah. They contact several references, ask for written statements. They make you go to a racial class to see whether or not just if you're willing to adopt a child of another race, but if you are
prepared.
Like if you have a circle of friends and people in your life that actually match that person's culture and race.
They go through our tax statements.
They go through your taxes,
bank accounts,
full financial audit. It's like basically getting audited by the IRS, and they make sure that you're able to do it. And that was why I was saying earlier, like it feels so invasive, but every single little thing you're like, okay, there's a reason. This is a rule. Something must have happened. Like there's a reason we're plugging these outlets. So once you pass that, then you work with another company to create a profile. You can do it on your own as well, but they all pretty much recommend hiring a professional to do this, that they give you a template with questions and they ask for certain types of photos. And they basically build a 16-page version of what kind of feels like a Tinder bio. They have a 2-page version and then a 16-page version. They send the 2-pagers to the adoptive mothers that the mothers placing that they've screened and make sure are real. And basically they get this stack of however many people that mother matches for them, because they ask us our preferences of like what we're willing to adopt or take on, drug use situations, ethnicities and race, ages. What are some of the other parameters? Gender, of course. So once a birth mother matches the adopted parents' parameters, they include the adopted parents in a massive stack of mailers that go out, and the mom swipes through them and picks their favorites, then gets to look at the 16 pages and then selects. Once they select you, you get a call from the home study agency, right?
Yeah.
The social worker agency will call you and say, hey, you've been selected. They send the birth mother's profile to you, and then you pick them back. So where we're at in the process is we've built our profile, and the profile has been live for about 1 month.
And that's the process that on average takes about
18
months. But it depends because people have, like you said, different parameters on gender and race, which tend to be the big one, but also drug use, alcohol use during pregnancy.
Paternity situation.
Like if
the dad isn't known or hasn't signed their release papers or something like that, that can be a deal breaker for a lot of people. But the good news is they say that for people with no race preferences, no gender preferences, people that live in cool neighborhoods, and actually even gay dads tend to match quicker than most. So hopefully it's not going to be an 18-month process. After that, once you've matched, you have a Skype phone call, you meet in person if possible, and then you basically kind of cover their living expenses until about 2 months after birth. So you basically make sure that they're in a safe situation, that they don't have to worry about bills, so that usually helps people just live a happier life. It's a huge argument for universal basic income. Um, and yeah, you just establish a relationship with this person. You kind of support them as much as you can. The law firm or whoever you're working with generally advises you as to kind of what the best boundaries are to maintain. Because obviously, I'd be like, "Come live with us," but that's not a good idea. Um, and yeah, then you travel to wherever they are. You go for what's it, about 10 days on average, sometimes 2 weeks, depending if the kid has to, if there's problems or anything. And then you adopt them in that state, and then you come back to your state and you finalize it at the courthouse somewhere near downtown LA for us, and then your parents.
Yeah, I mean, they're legally your child once you leave the hospital.
Yeah.
That's the point of no takesies backsies.
No takesies backsies is the official legalese. I believe it's 72 hours after the child is born is when it's fully confirmed. So what are we looking forward to about being parents, and what are we most nervous about?
I mean, it's obviously a huge undertaking. So I think it comes with a mixed bag of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
I want to back up a little bit and talk about kind of what we're doing in the waiting period, because I think, 18 months seems daunting. And our approach has been to just plan as fun of a life in the upcoming months so that we have something to look forward to. And we're not, I guess, scrapped all our summer plans in hopes that we're going to have a baby. And then when summer comes and goes, we don't have a baby,
Mm-hmm.
then we're kind of sad and stressed about it. So instead, we're creating all sorts of trips and really fun stuff that if we have to cancel because we have a baby,
Oh no.
we're excited to cancel our plans because we're going to be parents.
Yeah. For the last year and a half, we basically spent restoring this house that we live in now so that we would have a space. So we've really kind of transitioned into that quiet life. And we've kind of changed our lifestyle in a lot of ways. We don't go out and party all that much, but most of the things we do now, we've sort of transitioned to stuff that you can do when you have a kid. So most of our socializing is during the daytime at volleyball or things
Backyard
like
dinners.
that. Backyard dinner. Yeah. So we've kind of just we're trying to ease the termination shock as much as possible. But they say when they advise you about stuff like this to not buy anything. Don't buy a crib. Don't set up a nursery. Don't buy the diapers. Don't do anything until you've matched and you're about to go and do it. And don't get me wrong, 5% of these adoptions are called stork drop, where there's a woman at the hospital that decides right then and there that they want to place. So sometimes you will just get 2 days notice, or you have to go to the hospital now, and you just get it on Amazon and figure it out, I guess. But they really, really, really advise, because the matching process can take so long. And, so many of these families have been trying for so long that you don't just have an empty nursery sitting in your house tormenting you. So we're going the full opposite direction. I'm going to Miami in 3 days, and then New York, and then I'm back here for 5 days before we go to Oaxaca. I think we're going to go to Madeira this summer. We're planning the funnest summer ever because
You just did Coachella 2 weekends ago. And I kind of worry a little bit about that, about a birth mother looking to place her kid up for adoption with us, and just seeing how much we're traveling and how we're go, and realizing maybe they're not a good fit.
Time.
Yeah.
They seem like they're having fun. I don't want to ruin this.
Yeah. So if you're listening, you're considering us, just know that we have a plan to kind of quiet our life and really focus on being parents.
They don't include last names on the profile, but I feel like our profile says we work in a public capacity. So someone could just Google Andres and Max and find us. So it's totally in the realm of possibility that a birth mother is doing their due diligence on us and finds this either YouTube video or podcast, in which case, hello, thank you so much for considering us. But yeah, the fun we're having is just to keep ourselves distracted from the fact that we haven't matched yet. So is there anything you're particularly nervous about?
I mean, I think what all parents are nervous about, which is the health of the child and making sure you're a good parent and protect them from everything that can go wrong.
Yeah,
It's
I don't wanna fuck
overwhelming, I
anyone
guess,
up.
when you think about it.
There's a lot. There's so much to it to be nervous about that I think you just can't think about it
Right.
and just approach it when it happens, because there's just so many worlds of if that you can dive into and just drown in.
Yeah, I hear stories of new parents that go into their kids' room while they're sleeping just to make sure that they're breathing every hour and they don't get any sleep because they worry about stuff like that. So who knows? Who knows what the future holds for our stress levels?
We're gonna be insufferable, I can already tell. Do you have any tips for listeners or maybe hope for the future that you'd like to share before we go into our final segment?
Tips for listeners as far as
Building a
those
family and
looking to
approaching
adopt?
things, yeah.
Just communicate with your partner. I mean, just make sure you're on board. There's nothing worse than having one person be the driver and the other person kind of reluctantly going along.
Yeah, this is not the place to be a passenger princess.
Yeah. I mean, I think when it came to this, you definitely drove as far as the paperwork. But I try to communicate along the way when I thought that I needed time, or, like I mentioned earlier, I lost my mother a few months ago. And for me, that was a period of like, I think we just need to take a breath, not be so into the adoption process right now because I'm going through things I've never been through before.
Yeah.
So it's
That was a
just
really interesting thing to
communicating that.
navigate because there was so much grief and sadness on that front, but then so much excitement and hope on this other front that it was actually real. I think it was really nice to have this thing that we're looking forward to, but it was really important not to be driving it so hard that it became overwhelming.
Right.
So that was one of our relationship challenges. So communicate is a great one. I think
Yeah.
that's probably the most important one is don't be afraid to communicate about anything. I feel like with my straight friends and people, they don't communicate about all kinds of stuff, whether it's raising their kids or family dynamics or even just like the topic of sex and openness and those conversations. And I think one of the great things about being queer is that you have to reassess all of it and you have to tear it all down and build it from scratch as to what works for you. So my piece of advice is the same thing, but don't be afraid to communicate anything. Like, don't have any shame. If you are not comfortable with any factor of this, communicate that. Don't just go along with it because your partner wants to.
Yeah, I think that's something that you and I have navigated, in my opinion, very well in our relationship. And it's one of the things that's made it successful is we aren't afraid to kind of tear back all the heteronormative stuff. And sometimes realizing that the straight people have been doing this for thousands of years because it works. And so we go right back into kind of putting it together the same way. But oftentimes we're happy with the rearrangements we've made and we don't feel any guilt about.
Don't take any of the rules for granted. Always question it.
Like question the rules and, it's your family, it's your life, and you get to do it the way you want to.
Yeah. So I feel very grateful to have a partner like this to be going through all of it. That being said, it's time to fight me. On Stuff Every Queer Kid Should Know, I like to wrap up every episode with a segment called Fight Me. The guest has been given a series of topics that are quite controversial and an option of which stance to take on that topic. So, Andres, which topic have you selected today and what stance are you going to have on it?
I've selected, are we in a simulation?
Ooh.
Because I know this one gets under Max's skin like no other topic.
All right, here we go. Which stance are you taking? Are we or are we not in a simulation?
We are not in a simulation. I think it is self-centered to assume that there's a world out beyond ours that modeled this. I think
go off. You have a minute. You have a minute to make your case, bro.
I think that we aren't, and there's no proof of it. I think that it's narrow-minded to think that the stuff beyond our understanding is a version or some sort of replica of what we're living through, and that we're just a smaller component of that. I think it minimalizes our decisions and it just kind of makes us obsolete. And so it doesn't work for me. don't want to believe it, but also there's just no proof. Like you could as easily say that a rug decides our movements. Like it just is that nonsensical.
Well, if
Like
it's a slippery
argue that.
rug, then you definitely change the way you move on it.
Sure, but like it seems like just something pulled out of thin air that we want to believe in. I personally don't believe in God, but it's much like that. It's this idea that this is the way it has to be.
Okay. Well, it sounds to me like your argument for there not being a simulation in which we all exist is for your emotional well-being. So I don't want to disturb that too much. That being said, I'm going to lay out the facts. We've got that really basic argument that's been around for a long time that with like the increasing capacity of technology over the years, just doubling every single year, it just doesn't make sense that we wouldn't be in a simulation. That being said, let's consider the types of simulations that we might be in. I think when people think of a simulation, they think of like, I don't know, the Matrix, where we lost the war with the computers and they're using us as batteries. No. I don't think it's like a prison that we're in. I think we are all here voluntarily. I mean, okay, there's also like the other option of like the Black Mirror thing where we're just like a program being run for like statistical purposes. Sure, maybe. I don't know. I'm a little too narcissistic to believe that. But I think what we are in is a simulation that is basically a retirement home. I think we are all people that used to be alive at some point and we didn't want to die yet. So we paid a bunch of money to be put in this platform to come and live our best lives over and over and over again. Because what is a human brain designed to do? Live a human life.
So do you believe that the past happened? Because in your scenario, it seems that just the current reality and the current use of technology is what dictates everything. So how do you do you think cavemen are just a figment of our collective imagination?
Yeah, no, I think that I would hope that the history is accurate to what actually happened on the outside. But I am a subscriber to the church of I don't know.
Exactly.
So it is something designed, at least initially, by humans. So it's going to be full of like flaws and biases and fucked up stuff. But I think that we chose, kind of like in the Matrix, to go back in time to a golden age. Like, for example, if my dad wanted to be put in the retirement home, he'd go back when America was great. Like he would go back to a further back time when he thought things were great before they went to shit. So I think that we are living in the age that our human selves grew up in. Again, I don't know. I'm not sure. Is there a chance? I have not been proven wrong on this. I have not been proven right on this. But if you ask me if I believe in this more than like the idea of some dude named Jesus saving all of our souls by going on vacation for 3 days, I believe in the simulation one more. So I'm not necessarily trying to argue that we are absolutely in a simulation. I'm arguing the fact that you don't know we're not. And there's pretty good evidence pointing to either.
But we don't know that any religion is correct. And if they all have the same probability and the whole world of like the whole range of options has the same probability, it's so infinite that the answer is just my reality is what is. And therefore it doesn't matter. And therefore no. It's
therefore
no. Therefore no.
You know, you're talking about various religions. I actually think they're more related than we think they are. You know, there's the Jesus' silent years between the ages of 12 and 27 or something like that when he just disappeared. People think he went to India or the East and basically brought back Eastern philosophies and religion. I think it would make a great plot for a stoner comedy those years. On that note, I am very comfortable and happy to agree to disagree on this matter.
All right.
Thank you very much for coming on Stuff Every Queer Kid Should Know.
Thanks for having me.
We have a lot more resources on everything we talked about in the show notes. Andres, where can everybody find you?
They could find me on Instagram at Andrés Camilo ____. That's also my handle on TikTok, or andrescamilo.com has all the links.
All right. He'll be putting his art up for public consumption at the end of this year. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Stuff Every Queer Kid Should Know. This is a Wellness Loud production produced by Drake Peterson and Jake Wachtel. Additional production by Cass Falding and Chantilly Toison. The episode was recorded by Jason Siegel, Mun Singh, edited by Jesse Trout, and mixed by Mike Fry. Music by Tom Goss. If you like this show, don't forget to share it with your friends. subscribe on your preferred channel or all of them, and give us a 5-star rating. It would be super, super helpful. Thank you so much to all my Patreon subscribers. You are credited in the show notes. Thank you for listening. See you next time.